Hi, hi. So I decided to. Oh, I apologize. How rude. My name is Zainab Munaye at Jumai_O on Instagram. I decided to do my first book review as requested by you guys. I hope my voice is loud enough, so we're just gonna get into it. No wasting of time. So my most recent read is Of Women and Frogs by Bisia Japon. She's half Nigerian, half Ghanaian. I think you can guess by her name. And she tells a story of a girl who is very similar to the character, half Nigerian, half Ghanaian, who grows up in Nigeria and Ghana. A less part of her life was she grew up in Nigeria with her mom and her dad. And I think when she was getting to the age of 10 or so, before 10, maybe about 8 or 9, I'm not sure again, she shipped off to Ghana by her mom to be with her dad, and she finds out that her dad has an entire different family. So he has two families in essence. So according to the story, her dad had a family in Ghana before he went off to Nigeria, met her mom, and set up another family. So herself and her brother, Kwabena, had shipped off to Ghana to be with her dad. And he tells a story. I think that the summary of the story is life as an African child, as an African girl child, through the eyes of a child up until she becomes an adult. So the character grows as we go ahead. So we see her as a child, as a teenager, and as an adult, as a wife as well. It's the story. The story touches on a lot of topics. It touches on patriarchy. It paints a picture of feminism without actually pushing it, in your face. It's not very in your face. I would not. And of all the things that I like about it romances the idea of feminism in the reality of an African woman. So, I mean, I would say I am a feminist. I mean, if we can define what a feminist is, I think we all have our own. I think every individual has their own definition of what is and what isn't a feminist. But I would say I'm a feminist. But then the truth of the matter is, even in every part of the world, it's the same thing. There is the textbook what feminism is, and then there's the reality of what you have to deal with. And I think this is one of the things that this story talks about. Really, is weaving through the I will and I would not because I am a woman, and finding balance, making finding balance in it really. It's like the whole argument of will you kneel down or not, at your introduction, and sometimes you have to come to a compromise on these things and realize that maybe you don't, how do they say it, you cannot win every battle, you have to lose some battles to win the war. I don't know. But basically, there's a bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve, and sometimes it's better to lose this little battle now to win bigger in the future. And I think for me, it's one of very few books that addresses that, being a woman and saying, this is what I want. This is what society expects of me. But I am going to find a way around these two things. I would achieve both ways and I would still win because I would be able to attain the goals and be able to do the things that I want to do. I think that's one of the things that this story talks about and addresses. It also addresses the big issue of African parents, African kids, and sex education. So I don't know about you. Most African parents don't do the sex ed. They talk, There's no sex ed. The schools don't do it. I don't know if schools now do it, but the schools don't do it. And through the eyes of a child who transitions to a teenager and grows up, of course, as the story goes, be able to see the effects of not actually explaining to your kids. I mean, in this story, the character at some point experienced some form of sexual violence from another kid, and the reaction of the parents to it was just shocking. I mean, it was shocking. There was torture, sexual torture from the parents. I won't say sexual torture, but it's a sexual organ, so might as well. And they put, I think it was ginger or pepper up her hoo-ha because of that. And nobody asked what happened, because in essence she was almost raped and she escaped the situation. You understand? But those are the things really. There was no conversation about why, what happened, what you should expect from your body. She's transitioning. I mean, nobody talks to her about menstruation. She starts to menstruate, she can't tell anybody before eventually she finds out that other kids are doing it and she's learning. And even when she gets back home, there isn't much of a lesson to it. And those are the things that, I think as Africans we need to start to address. Another thing and then even, owning your body, your sexual, what's the word now? Sexual curiosity. Kids get to the age where someone is to tell them, well, it's normal to feel a certain way, but nobody in an African setting is really doing that. And you start to have kids who are experimenting with the same sex, experimenting with the opposite sex, experimenting with all sorts of things. You don't have the right information as to how to protect yourself against STDs, against pregnancies, and the idea that a pregnancy is you are dead, it's shocking. But it really is. I mean, this character goes through numerous abortions as a function of my father cannot find out I am pregnant. And I remember, and then there was also the issue of her getting into a marriage that she did not consent to. That was hilarious. But yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say this book is a 7. It's a good read. The character, this is my first book. Sorry, I wanted to say the author I meant. This is my first book by Bisi Ajapong, so I'm not sure if this is her go-to kind of, every author kind of has their blueprint, something they always talk about. I'm not sure if this is her go-to. I would check to see if she has other books that I can read and let you guys know. Regards to characterization, the characters are easy to relate with. The style of writing is very easy. It's not overly descriptive. Some books are so descriptive at some point you're even lost. What are we talking about? But it's not overly descriptive. The story is consistent. You can connect the dots together, and because it's set in 2 different countries at a particular era, which is I think after Ghana goes through a coup and J.J. Rawlings is in charge, and Nigeria as well is the period where there's Ghana must go, Nigerians chasing Ghanaians out of Nigeria, and Ghanaians doing the same thing, and it talks about our political relationship as 2 countries, Ghana and Nigeria, in this forever fight. You are always beefing yourselves, if you are not fighting over jobs, you're fighting over jollof. But I think, but the truth of the matter is it also tells a story of us holding ourselves together, because beyond all of that, there are still opportunities for us to interact as nations and of course grow out of that. And I think it's just like sibling rivalry. How you're always teasing your siblings. I think that's the love between Nigeria and Ghana will always be. So my favorite character from this book, I wouldn't be able to say who my favorite character is. I like Essie. I like that she finds herself and she becomes the woman that she wants to be really eventually. I like Sammy. Sammy, we don't hear too much about Sammy's background, but Sammy is very important to the growth of Essie in this book. She helps Essie find her feet and find herself, her character. And I like that, Loki talks about 10 seconds men as well, man. The character, the guy that she eventually marries, Rodolph, and how, relationship between sex and love, and being content, and finding balance. That character was sad, but I didn't like that relationship. It wasn't, but I mean, truth of the matter is there are tons and tons of women that settle. I think that relationship was a settling relationship, but yeah, that's it really. Before the next video, I'll try and put up some form of blueprint that would set up to be the structure for these videos. But this is my first one. Thank you for watching. If you have any books, oh yes, we're starting a book share program. So the first set of books will be going out tomorrow, depending on when I upload this. But yeah, the first set of books will be going out soon. If you have any books you think that I would like, please send me a DM. We'll switch books. Give me your books, I'll give you mine. If there are any books that you think, I should check out, send me a DM. I'll try and see if I can get them, read them, and review it for you. So until later, it's bye from me. Have a lovely day and do have a beautiful, beautiful